I'm back. Welcome back, everyone. Episode 6. Kind of insane. I get a lot of feedback that my podcast helps people get through their year. And what I mean by that is because we come out on a monthly basis, I have so many people reach out and they're like, you make me realize how fast time flies. And I love that, but I hate that because life is precious and I hate to be that reminder that time is ticking, but it is. So thank you to everyone who's been around this year. We're just about halfway there. And like last month, this episode's gonna hit a little bit different because we're in Boston, baby. And as much as I wanted this episode to be live on film so badly, unfortunately I'm meeting with production today, so it wasn't ideal time. And you know, contracts have to be written, there's a lot that goes into that, so we're hoping July, but I digress. Welcome to Boston. As much as you're not able to see where I'm sitting right now, I can't wait for you to see it because I'm in my production room and it's so beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful. I don't even want to paint the picture because I just want you all to see it live. So be on the lookout for that over the next couple of months. But without further ado, today's episode is dedicated to my new home, the one and only Boston, Massachusetts. Go Sox! So if you didn't tune into last month's episode, I'm going to give you a little bit of a catch up here. Unexpectedly, I moved to Boston truly within a month. I got the opportunity to move here for a new opportunity within my career, and it was something I could not pass up. I don't think anyone in their right mind would pass up. So to my new work family, friends, personal family, everyone, thank you. This has been such an incredible transition, and I'm so excited to tell you all about it. To my friends and family and work family, you kind of all know the story, but that's what we're going to get into today, and just kind of talk about Boston culture and what it's like transitioning from the Midwest to the East Coast. Huge change of scenery, change of life, change of everything. So that's what today's about. About a month ago, I got a call with an opportunity to come out here. And there was some details that needed to be worked out in order for me to get here, but here I am. So that all came to fruition, and now I'm here. Funny thing about that, most people that live here, I think, have this interpretation that I'm very familiarized with this area, and that is not the case. I'm actually very completely new to this area, and I don't really know anything about the place. Just so you have kind of an understanding, my mom's family is from here, and my mom went to college here. So again, I have an understanding of it, but I've never lived here, never really been here many times. So imagine you live your entire life in one place, specifically Ohio, where there's really not much going on, and you up en route to one of the most educated, business-minded, sports-affiliated cities in the world. It's been an adjustment, to say the least. But because anyone that knows me knows those are all huge parts of who I am as an individual, it made the transition so seamless. I mean, professionally, everyone here is a go-getter. I shouldn't say everyone. Most. I don't want to classify an entire group of people, but most people here are business-minded like myself. Most people here are immersed in the education scene, which again, I'm very impressed and enthused by, so that matches my lifestyle. And most importantly, it's the sports capital of America, arguably. So all around, it just makes sense for me to be here, but I never knew that. Which is interesting. Anyone that knows me knows that my whole life I really wanted to specifically end up in Miami. Anyone that knows me knows my love for that place. But anywhere south, honestly. South, southwest, warmth, sun. But I realized with this opportunity that's not what the universe, that's not what God wants. And so I'm here, and I absolutely love it here. So my point with that And that's what today, is going to circulate around, is that a lot of times in life, we have a plan, and that plan is a vision in which we have made for ourselves. And like I just shared, my whole life I've had this vision for what my life is to look like. And as incredible as it is to have a vision and have a plan and want a future for yourself, this opportunity made me realize that God has an entirely other plan, and you don't even know what's out there. Because for me, in my circumstances, like I shared, I had never really been here in my life. I mean, on very short occasions, not very long periods of time, but this isn't a place like I visit often. I'd really never visited at all, to be transparent. And it's not something that was ever on my radar. Kind of going off of that, the past year of my life, I've applied to hundreds of jobs. And none of them were specific city based. However, just ironically, I never saw any opportunities here, so I never applied to opportunities here. But it also wasn't really on my radar per se. So the fact that I'm now here is very interesting because, again, that wasn't in my plan. That wasn't something that I had top of mind. So it's interesting, to say the least. But, transcending with that, I think it's important when you do have dreams and goals and ambitions, although it's good to hold yourself to what those are, if you start to pivot and go in different directions, don't hold up barriers that limit you to possibilities and opportunities that are out there that you're not aware of. And what I mean by that is I know so many people that are like, no, I want this job in this city making this amount of money and this, and this. And again, that's awesome. That's important that you're able to paint that picture and have that vision. But, the universe, God, whatever you spiritually align with, might actually want you to stop somewhere else, learn a lesson, build your knowledge and your strength, pivot, and then go to that city or go to that job, whatever that looks like. So for me, as much as when I got the call and I was told, like, what are your thoughts on Boston? I was really caught off guard because I didn't have the thought on Boston. I quite honestly forget about Boston's existence coming from Ohio. It's just not a place that was ever on my radar. But once the opportunity was presented and I'm like, okay, this isn't something I can pass up, I then realized, now being here, that one, this is where I'm meant to be. Two, in order for me to grow and develop and maybe end up where I've always dreamed of being, I needed to be here. And shit, I might be here forever. I don't know, right? I'm 22 years old. I couldn't tell you what next year has in store, let alone 30s, 40s, 50s, so on and so forth. So I share that because so many people I know, like I said, have this vision and this goal, and it's like anything that knocks them off path is like a life-ending event, or it's the end-all be-all, and it's not. And that's why I always push those around me to be open to new ideas, new adventures, new opportunities, because you never know where that could take you to, right? For example, Louis Vuitton. Anyone that knows me knows that was like the end-all be-all at age 19. I was going to live there. I was going to die there. I was going to do everything within that brand. And when I realized that that wasn't indeed the case for me, it was very much so, like I've shared on past episodes, an identity crisis. Because in my head, I painted a picture that was me. I was Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton was Mackenzie Hart. Those were the same. They're not whatsoever. And in life, that's another really important thing, is separating yourself from your career, from your dreams, from your aspirations, from whatever it is, because so many of us are what we do, are what we want to do, are those things, but you're so much more. Like, am I a leader? Yes. Am I an athlete? Yes. Am I a musician? Yes. Am I a podcaster? Yes. But those things aren't me. I am me, which again kind of sounds corny, but the problem is so often when people identify as their hopes, dreams, careers, well, what happens when those go away? Right? I was recently talking to a really good friend of mine about this, actually, because I saw a meme. This is really funny and corny, and you're going to die if you know what I'm referencing. But it was like a skeleton of a girl in her casket. This sounds very sad, but it's actually funny. And it was just her skeleton, but then you saw her as her alive, and it was like this girl with a BBL and implants and Botox and all the things, right? But in the ground, when she had passed, she was just bones, right? And as maybe dark and twisted as that analogy is, I feel like, not that any of those things are wrong at all. However, what, when you leave this earth, do you leave? Right? Because when you're in the ground, people aren't going to reference you and be like, oh, that girl's body was so T. Oh, that girl's hair extensions were so beautiful. That's just not what's said. Right? What's your legacy? It's not how you're built. It's not how many pull-ups you could do. It's not the numbers you hit at your job. It's not how many things you sold at your job. Whatever your career path looks like, what influence do you leave? What impact do you leave? And I think, although when tragedies have taken place in my life, and I've lost a sport, I've lost a job, I've lost a partner, I've lost whatever it is, and it seems like such loss, I now can sit here and look back and say, no, I was meant to lose that in order to be here. And I know that mindset isn't easy to have. And legacy is not an easy conversation because we're so in the moment. And a lot of times we don't self-reflect and look at ourselves to have an understanding of who we are. But we identify who we are through what we think other people think we are. Does that make sense? I'm going to repeat that. A lot of times, our vision on ourselves isn't through our lens, but it's what we think other people think of us. And that's the barrier I'm currently trying to break. Because I've recognized moving to Boston and letting go of things such as people that don't serve me, a job that didn't serve me, a XYZ, those barriers and those losses seemed monumental, and to an extent they were. However, sitting here now, I recognize I had to lose those things in order to be here. So, full circle moment. I highly recommend and persuade anyone listening that has dreams, goals, ambitions, whatever that looks like for you, to have an understanding that life is not a straight shot. It's not just a clear path. It's a very windy road. Sometimes you come to a dead end. You have to backtrack. You have to go forward. Think of it like chutes and ladders, right? You know, sometimes you go up, 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 and the slide comes down, and you're like, damn, I'm back to where I started. What the hell? And you climb, climb, climb. You're at the very top, ladder back down. Sometimes you have to take ladders that go in a left direction, a right direction, a side lateral direction. It's not just, the ladder doesn't just go up for anyone. And when I say anyone, I mean Beyonce, Kim, any idolized figure you can think of. It's not been like that. And that goes for everyone. I strongly suggest people, especially as I enter this new chapter of living in a city that has a completely new energy to it, a new group of challenges, opportunities, new faces, new everything. I'm in a phase of my life where I recognize the importance of the highs and lows of the journey. Because again, going off of that, it's not a straight shot. And when I was in Ohio for about 9 months of my life, transitioning between Louis Vuitton and this, I didn't know what was going on whatsoever, okay? I didn't know. I had a thought of having a career change and working in media, entertainment, sports. I was so, I don't want to say clueless, but I was just so giddy for opportunity that I didn't know what the future looked like. And that's the shitty part, is that we want to know what the future looks like so badly, especially when we're in the dark and we're going through trials and tribulation and nothing seems to be working out. And that's where I was for 9 months of my life. Everything was a mess. I had essentially lost everything I had worked 20 years for. And it just seems like in my life, every couple of years, I have to start back at square one. But that's not really the reality of it. And I find so many people, when they have setbacks, it seems life-ending, which is normal. Because when you work years and years and years to achieve something, especially of this magnitude, and then within the blink of an eye, it's gone. To quote Barbie, Billie Eilish, it's a what was I made for moment. Like, I did all that for what? But everything's a part of the journey, and everything aligns at the end of the day. In the moment, it might not make sense, and the chutes and ladder reference, you climb, and now you're sliding down the slide, and you're like, okay, what was all that climbing for? Well, there's always going to be another mountain. Like, I recognize, even though right now I'm truly at one of the highest highs in my life, I'm at like what I would say is a pinnacle, this is temporary. And I hate to say that because my life is absolutely incredible right now, but over the last 9 months it was not. And that's life. So always know that the climb is gonna always come to an end, and the slide is also going to come to an end. Like, nothing is forever. Whatever that looks like, it's not forever. I mean, unless you're serving a life sentence, but that's the only example I can come up right now that's forever, and that's a whole nother conversation that I can't speak to, so that's neither here nor there. But I think it's really important to always have a growth mindset within every obstacle you face, because trust and believe, if that's you right now and you're going through hell and high waters and you're like, damn, Mac, like for the past X amount of time, I've been at this stopping point of not knowing what I'm doing, not knowing where I'm going, not having support, not having the love, not having the drive, the ambition, whatever that looks like for you, know that there is another side. And there is a quote unquote Boston out there waiting for you. And it may not be a city, it may not be a move, it could be a person, it could be a job, it could be a new skill that you can learn, a new hobby that you're into. There's something out there that's going to give you hope. And I think it's funny, my sister's name's Hope, shout out to her, but I love that name, and I love, you know, what that word embodies, because if you have hope, you're good. Truly. In my opinion, that's really the only thing you need in life. Because if you're hopeful and you have that positivity backing you, the opportunities are endless. And so many people lose hope because of what they've experienced. Again, sharing another conversation I've had with a friend recently, I have a negative mindset on certain aspects of my life because of what I've gone through. Here's an example: relationships. Ironically, I just got back from traveling to New York for work, and I worked with an incredible team, and if they ever listen to this, I hope they know that those types of interactions within my life have a profound impact on who I am. I hope profound has a positive connotation, hopefully, because that's what I mean. So when I was with this team, it was kind of funny, and this transcends into what I was talking about, having a negative mindset and not having hope because of your experiences. But one of them asked me, like, do you have a partner? Do you have a relationship, kids, anything like that? And my immediate response, and this was very harsh, so I probably could have worded this differently, but my exact response was, oh God, no. And that's not good, okay? Because I don't think unfortunately, so many times throughout our life, when we have interactions that are negative and we don't have good experiences with a certain topic or ideology or whatever that looks like, if that's a relationship, work, sports, hobby, whatever, we typically resort to a negative mindset, not a growth mindset. And therein lies an issue. Because, for example, just because I've had numerous relationships not go to plan, does that mean I'm never going to have a good relationship? Does that mean I'm never going to find my person? Does that mean so on and so forth? No, it doesn't. And I think just like with work, your career, or again, anything in your life that maybe hasn't gone to plan, it's very hard because naturally when you do something over and over and over again and it doesn't work out, referencing insanity, doing something over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome, you're going to go insane. Similarly enough, it's the same idea. It's like, oh, this didn't work out, this didn't work out, this didn't work out. I'm done with it. Which, as much as that's how I feel right now in life, I can't forever think like that, because where's that going to get me, right? You're just going to end up bitter. And that's one thing I continuously preach on here, is that always be better, not bitter. And so as soon as I said that, and a lot of the other women in the room agreed with me and made a joke about, bad experiences in the past with relationships, I immediately felt very regretful with my statement, because I think a lot of the issues within that category of my life come from within. And as much as I can point fingers and say, well, this person is this and this person did this, that's very well true. Like, I've had a lot of partners that yikes is really the only way to put that. However, why are they all like that? Right? Like, at the end of the day, I choose who's around me. So within every situation, I think accountability is key. And I've jumped from topic to topic. This all transcends into this entire episode. That's the idea of starting over and what a fresh start truly looks like. Because as I walk into this situation of living in a place I've never lived or really been to, for a matter of fact, not knowing anyone here, starting a new job, starting at a new gym, everything is new here. Everything. There's not a single thing from my past life that's transcending into where I'm sitting today. So what do I do with that? I can do what I've done the past 22 years, which is the same behaviors over and over again, expecting change, which that's not how that maths, if you're curious. Or I can reflect. And I think, ding, 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 that's what's so huge here. People expect life to just be sunshine and rainbows and everything to change following slides, as we've been using the Chutes and Ladders reference. People expect that even though your track record may be not being able to have a long-term relationship, or not being able to hold a job long-term, or not being able to do a pull-up, or not being able to do this or that, whatever it looks like for you, and they think, oh, I'm going to move to Boston and that's all going to change. No, it's not. If you have a problem, which I don't really like that word, if you have an area of opportunity within your life, and you take that area of opportunity and you up and root it to a new plant of soil, it's not going to change just because you moved it. You need to change the seed. You need to change the everything, the environment, everything. So as I move here, even though I do have a change of environment, which I think is good for my seed, I still need to change the other behaviors, the water in which how I water it, the direction of where the sunlight hits it, the area within my home that I put the plant. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into changing behaviors in order to have success within your life. So again, example for me, I recognize that the past, let's just say, 4 relationships that I've had have not worked out in my favor. And some of them have been better than others. But why is it that the same endings keep transpiring? Ding, 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 me. As much as I can sit here and say, well, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. Well, that's true. I'm not saying they're normal either. And I'm not saying they don't have issues within they need to work on. Let's change that phrasing. Areas of opportunity. However, I'm not them. I don't sit here and talk to you all to talk on their behalf. I sit here and tell you my truth, and what I recognize is how I can be better and not bitter within my life. And so, for example, me saying, oh God, no, about having a relationship, that's a terrible mindset to have. I'm not saying right in this moment I want nor need a relationship in my life, because I don't think I do. But let's just say someone comes into my life that is good for me. It's not fair of me to not give them a chance based off of my previous experiences. It's just not. So, back to Boston. I think coming here is good for my plant, as we've also used that analogy. Putting myself in a new environment where I think the growth is going to be more of a success than it was in Ohio, due to the toxicity of where I was residing, the things that were transpiring. You know, if you want to get more detail on that, listen to the previous episode. But coming here and taking the last 6 months, aka 6 episodes, to speak on what I think is going to help me thrive and put myself in a better position, I think I am holding accountability within myself and looking at where I have areas of opportunity and there's potential for growth where previously I haven't. Full circle moment. I think if you want change within your life and there's things within your life that aren't working, don't expect life to bring you change. That's not how that works. That's not how it will ever work. And if you are doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome, you might as well just call it quits. Maybe that's harsh to say, but that's the reality of what your life is. And so many of us have that insanity track where we do the same thing within every relationship. We do the same thing at the gym every day. We do the same thing within every role that we work in as far as our career journey. But we expect to be happier. We expect to be more fulfilled. We expect. Why? Scientifically, mathematically, that does not track. Mac's suggestion of the day would be change. Do something different, try something different, and change will come. You know, going off of that, as I always transcend into new topics, my job right now. The way I lead within the role I'm in right now is night and day different than the leader I was at, let's just say, Louis Vuitton for situational purposes. I'm a whole different leader. I'm a whole different woman. I'm a whole different visionary. The way I operate is different because, thankfully, leaving that job, as much as I initially didn't take ownership of wanting a new growth opportunity, and what I mean by that is everything has its cycle, right? And Louis Vuitton had its 2± year cycle. And it was difficult, as I've spoken on, to leave that career. But like I've shared, a lot of it was because of the way in which I operated. Not that it was wrong, not that I did anything wrong. However, I learned, and like I've shared in episodes, I have to separate myself from the job in Mackenzie because we are not the same. And if you listen to season 1, I was the same. And that's why as I go into interviews this season, next season, the season following, they're gonna look different because I am different. And I see life differently. And if I didn't, I'd be concerned. You know, a good person to reference, and, you know, I shout her out on most episodes because she's the reason I'm doing this and pursuing this, is Alex Cooper. From the start of Call Her Daddy to where she is today, that's a different woman. Completely different woman. And if you watched her documentary, you can recognize that. And I think it's crucial for all women, all men, anyone, regardless of who you are, it's crucial to learn, grow, and change within life in order to find success. And so as I move to Boston and I look at my life as a whole and everything I've shared thus far on this episode, there's a lot of change going on, which can be kind of nerve-wracking and a hard pill to swallow, but it's also truly incredible. And that's why so many people are kind of concerned for me right now, because they're like, how are you? How are you feeling? Are you comfortable? Especially at work, which I understand why they feel like that. But anyone that knows me knows that I'm my best self when I'm uncomfortable. Is that typical? No, I wouldn't say so. However, me personally, and you may be different, most are, I thrive in the land of uncomfortability. Don't know if that's a word, but we're going with it. But that's the truth. When I'm comfortable and I look in patterns of my life, when I'm comfortable in any situation, dynamic, so on and so forth, that's when I start to tank. Which a lot of people are the opposite. People don't like being uncomfortable. People don't like being in situations where they feel uncomfortable or they feel like they have to step outside the box. But that's when I've recognized I learn and I grow drastically the most. That's why right now is so crucial to my life, because I'm being put in a situation where I am not comfortable whatsoever. I don't know a soul. I don't know where I am. I don't know. Everything is new and everything is unknown. And for that, I grow. Something to think about. But again, circling back to the fear for anyone that may be going through something similar to me of wanting to try something new, whatever the magnitude of that is. Maybe that's just going to try a new yoga class. Maybe it's moving to the other side of the world. I don't know what that looks like for you, but do it. Another thing that, falls into that same conversation that recently, very, very silly scenario, but I think it speaks volumes to the analogy I can give with it, is me and my boss were going to get change for an $100 bill recently, and it happened to be Juneteenth, which, on that note, happy Juneteenth. I hope everyone has been able to celebrate that within the month of June. I think it's a very important thing to bring light to, so I hope you all were able to celebrate to your fullest extent. But anyway, back to the day of Juneteenth. I was working and we needed change, and we went to the bank and it was closed because of it being Juneteenth. And so we desperately needed change. And so my boss was like, we're screwed. Like, what are we going to do? And I was like, let's just go to another business and ask for change. And because of where I work, it's, high profile luxury, however you want to describe it. That's not an ideal circumstance to be in. Not that it's the end of the world, but it might not be the greatest look to ask for change. But my point of bringing up this little silly scenario is, what's the worst someone's going to say? No, right? When we needed change, if we walked into a little convenience store and we're like, hey, can you break this 100? The worst thing they could have said was no. And in that scenario, they didn't say no. I bring up that scenario because so often I feel as human beings we are afraid of the no. We don't want to hear the no. And the idea of putting ourselves out there in certain capacities can be nerve-wracking. And I get that. But if you live with that mentality of never putting yourself out there, I guess I would say, then growth will never happen. Anyway, I'm really excited about what is to come from Boston and what this new life looks like for me. And I hope today, although our time together was short, there was a lot of people that interrupted me because I'm in this beautiful space and people are nosy of what I'm doing in here, but I can't wait for you guys to see it within the next couple of months. I hope today's episode brought you some insight to making big moves in your life, and maybe there's another Boston out there for you, another city, another environment, another person, another place, whatever that looks like for you. I hope this maybe changed your mindset on having a growth mindset, not taking no for an answer. And always remember that life is chutes and ladders and it's not just a straight shot up. So thank you so much for tuning into this month's episode. I can't wait to share more story and insights about my new experiences and journey here in Boston. I cannot wait for next month's episode because we will have a guest. I'm so excited, and we're probably looking at guests for the rest of the year. So if you're getting annoyed with me and my banter, well, you're in luck because we have some new faces joining us. So thank you again. I hope you all had a fabulous June, and I look forward to catching you on the flip side in July. Thank you all. Bye.